Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Past the Wire's podcast, Gate to Wire. I'm John Stetton. I'm with my co-host, Michael Vale. We are a couple of days post the 2021 Kentucky Derby. So before we get to the main show tonight, let's hear the recap of the Derby a couple of days after we let it sink in and see what our thoughts are on it. You know, with racing, I always like to take a couple of days to digest it.
Yeah, that's always
really
one of your
opine
mantras.
on it, you know. Well, we'll start with you, Mr. Vale. What did you think of the Derby?
Well, I'll tell you what. To back up, like that 2 days of racing, I thought was fantastic. Like I enjoyed the whole weekend, and we got a little bit of everything. John, we had logical long shots come in. We had huge payouts on bets that were gettable. We had a dead heat in $1 million race. We had Bob Baffert winning on the grass, winning the Derby with $1,000 yearling, and
winning a turf race.
That's what I said.
That right? Okay.
Yeah. So and then we had Chad Brown nearly winning one of the best dirt races in the country, just getting caught by Malathot. I thought it was a great 2 days of racing. It just reminded me how great this sport can be. You know, I know we complain about racing a lot and for good reason, but I thought Churchill Downs did an amazing job putting that card together, and great racing. And obviously, congrats to Mr. Baffert. Honestly, if this was any other trainer, this would be one of the top stories in recent racing history. I mean, think about winning the Derby with $1,000 yearling. It is unreal. And it's not getting nearly enough media coverage, in my opinion. I think it's a great story.
You know, and it's funny, and it's probably not getting the media coverage
because it's Baffert, right?
And I mean, makes a habit of winning the Kentucky Derby. When you think about it, winning 7 Kentucky Derbies, the way racing is today, you take Godolphin that spent literally $1 zillion trying to win this race.
Okay? That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, Godolphin.
You have a trainer who's won the Kentucky Derby 7 times, okay? If you think about that, not just in the context of horse racing, just in the context of sports, it's an unbelievable achievement in all of sports that I can't even think of something that parallels it. You know, off the top of my head, I mean, the Patriots and Tom Brady's dynasty of Super Bowls. I mean, what do you want to compare it to? You know, Rocky Marciano, going undefeated as the heavyweight champ. I mean, I don't even know what to compare it to. All those horses every year, not just the ones that make it to the gate, but all the 3-year-olds that point to this race from all the different owners and breeders and barns and trainers to win the Derby 7 times with all, never mind having the horse prepared and ready to go. All the intangibles and trips and luck that can, affect the outcome of that race. To win it 7 times is unbelievable.
No, and most of the time he's doing it with a single entry. You know what I mean? He's had years where he's had multiple entries, but that is the exception, not the rule. And it brings me back to earlier in Bob's career, because early in Bob's career, when he's getting horses like Silver Charm, he used to win these derbies with some more modestly bred horses, just like Medina Spirit. And it's only been recently when he's got these $1 million studs.
Right, and I mean, you can't see it from here. I got a picture on my wall of War Emblem, a horse that he bought example prior to the Derby. You know what I mean? I mean, people are buying horses all the time trying to get to the Derby, and this guy just doesn't. You know, it's just it really is something that I don't even know how to quantify it. Not only in horse racing, just in sports, just an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah, and like I said, I know people don't like Baffert, and that's why the story is just not as big, but it's just the coolest thing. I mean, it is just
See,
such a
I think there's a lot of people that like him, and there's of course people that feel the other way. But I think it's not getting the attention that it should. Really, more because of the fact that he just wins it so often.
yeah.
I think that's taken away from the actual
Yeah, it's
accomplishment
hard to sell. It's hard to sell a underdog Bob Baffert story. You know what I mean?
Right, and but in reality, that's
Yeah.
what it was. I mean, it was $1,000 yearling. It was
Yeah.
probably the third or fourth horse down the list of his contenders that people
Like,
thought was going to win.
no, and the rumor is that he basically started this horse as like a workhorse. That he just was basically training him to lose against his better horses during workouts, and he was just getting word back that this horse just has a heart of gold and was fighting, the top of his crop.
Yeah, that I don't really know anything about that, but it was incredible. And let me tell you, in my opinion, John Velasquez rode a flawless race. Okay. And I said, so we discussed the race prior. We did our seminar. I thought that the strategy would be to go to the lead. Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't think that he would be able to go all the way because I just thought there were horses that were going to be able to catch him. But I was pretty sure he was going to go to the lead. What I didn't anticipate and what I think really helped them a lot and just worked out phenomenally for them was the fact that all the other riders I think thought well, he'll come back to us. He's just not going to win. He's not Bob's big horse. And
yeah, the fact that this wasn't Concert Tour, the fact this wasn't Life is Good,
right? Nobody went after him. And the race was over. A quarter mile in, I knew. I said, okay, I made a mistake. Medina Spirit's absolutely the horse to beat here, and they're going to have a hard time reeling him in. And that's exactly how it unfolded.
But I tell you what, man. So if I gave you, $1,000 bet at the 8th pole, are you still betting Medina Spirit? I thought Hot Rod Charlie was going right on by. I thought Essential Quality had horse under him.
I thought on the turn. I'll tell you exactly what I thought. And I've been watching these races a long time. And I have my own way and a little bit of a different way of looking at it.
Sure.
I never thought Mandaloon was going to win the race. He was having too hard a time getting past Medina Spirit. And my thought, I'm always thinking a couple of moves ahead. I said to myself, if he does get him, somebody's going to come and get him because he's going to be exhausted by the time he gets past him. So if anybody else is running, so to me, although 99 out of 100 people will say, yeah, Mandaloon looked like he was going to win, he never looked like he was going to win to me. He was just not going by Medina Spirit. And I thought if he did, that was going to be all he had. You know what I mean? If he didn't do it right at the wire, somebody was going to come and get him. But I did for a minute think that Hot Rod Charlie was the horse. When he was on the inside and moving up and tipped out, and he didn't get any traffic, and Pratt just, moved him out perfect, and it all looked like it worked out. And I bet Hot Rod Charlie, that I thought
I was against that horse, and I was like, John's going to make me look like an idiot, man.
I thought he was going to do it, but only for a second, because when you thought they were going to get Medina Spirit, I already kind of knew. I was like, Bob's horses don't quit. This horse is a game tough horse. Unless somebody explodes from the back, they're not going to get him. They're not going to dog him out to the wire. And I looked for, okay, who's it going to be coming? And you want to know something? Nobody was coming.
No.
Nobody was really coming. Everybody was just kind of like grinding it out and getting to the wire. So I kind of knew. I'm like, nah, this one's in the books. Medina.
Yeah, I know people list the Derby. I've said this before. I actually consider the Derby more of like a mile and a 16th type race, because once you get that mile and a quarter, these horses are so tired. It's rare when you can get these closers to close them down, because it's just it's hard to close at a distance you've never raced at before. You know what I mean? And I don't think enough people consider that. But I thought it was a really interesting race. Obviously, you didn't really know what was going to happen to the wire. Helium didn't disappoint me. He got 8th. He's clearly a little too much for him at the time, but beat a bunch of low-priced horses, which I was excited to see. I wanted to ask you, what did you think? Because I haven't heard a great answer yet on what happened with Joel Rosario coming out of the gate with Rock Your World.
I looked at it. I watched the replay. I knew something happened before the bump, so I didn't know what it was, but I knew he didn't come out the right way. My thought is this, and I don't like to criticize riders because I never rode a racehorse. Okay, so but why a top rider, an experienced rider, wouldn't have a handful of mane
Yeah.
and be dead set in the gate for the Kentucky Derby, where the break is so important. It's so hard to win that race if you don't come out running. I really don't know why that would
It was
be.
just a weird mistake for an undoubtedly awesome rider. Now, and I'd heard rumors, the gate's a little skinnier, so maybe his leg brushed up against the gate or something like that. But we got great photos where it shows his leg is completely out of the stirrup, like 2 steps out of the gate. And it's one of those things. I had Rock Your World in a couple of horizontals, and I kept Medina Spirit out of my horizontals specifically because I thought he'd get pressed by that specific horse. Um, and what bothers me more, John, is like I'm sure there's a great explanation, but like nobody's asked Joel about it. I haven't heard anything in the racing media about it, and it's a weird thing not to ask that. And once he got out of the gate, Joel didn't really try to rush him up at all. Like he kind of sat back and tried to make a
Well,
run. It
I
was a
didn't,
weird,
I
obviously
didn't
bad
see,
beginning.
I didn't see the after race interview, but somebody told me that he said that after he came out of the gate that way and was bumped, he kind of knew it wasn't his day, and he just wrapped up and saved the horse for another day.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that myself, so I don't know exactly if that's taken out of context. But somebody told me that he was asked after the race, and that's what he said, which I don't know even how I would feel about that
no, I don't like it. I don't
if
like
I
it
had
'cause,
bet on
I mean,
Rock Your World. Um,
it's what he looked like he was doing. Let me suppose whether he said that or not. That is what it looked like he was doing. It looked like he was saving the horse
and
for another race.
you're kind of forcing me to say something that I really don't want to say. Uh, but I'm going to say it anyway, and I'm going to say it in not a negative way, but John Sadler, and I don't want to talk much on the subject, but John Sadler had said before the Derby and after he made the decision to ride Rosario instead of Rispoli that
Yeah.
whether or not he made the right or wrong decision would be decided, by the results of the race. And I didn't agree with that at all. I thought whether or not that was the right decision is decided by who you see looking back at you in the mirror. Okay. But that said, if we take John Sadler's way of looking at it and apply it to the situation of what happened, then I think it's indisputable that he made the wrong call.
Yeah, and again, like we've had Joel on the show. He seems like a very nice guy, and
He's a great
obviously
guy. We've had him burn
really a
on.
Hall of
He's
Fame
a great
writer,
guy.
right? I mean,
No, I listen. I think you're dealing with two top tier riders.
yeah,
But I don't really want to talk much about that. There's
sure.
enough been said about it, and we have a very interesting guest, which I think is going to be a very positive thing. So, without further ado, let's take a quick break and bring back our guest, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso.
Okay, we are back with our guest for this episode of Gate to Wire, and I think it's a really important guest, and I think we're going to cover a very interesting um, line of subjects because we all know there are a lot of issues in horse racing right now. One of the main ones is horse health, horse welfare, aftercare, and just the condition of our race horses. And Justin Sallusto, who is the founder of Kingdom Nutrition Company and a longtime trainer and someone who's been around the racetrack as long as I could remember. I remember Justin in I don't know in the 70s, 80s. I mean, when he was training horses, and he's got a great horse story that he'll share with us. That's a one of a kind story. But before we get to that, Justin, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on, and we're just thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Of
Um,
course.
you know, I mean, what's more important today than taking care of, well, it's probably always been that way, but now it's kind of in the limelight, but taking care of our horses. And in full disclosure, Kingdom Nutrition Company is one of the sponsors Pass the Wire, our website and our YouTube shows and our podcast. But that aside, I'm a big believer in, drug-free racing and natural ways of promoting health and supplements and nutrition and things like that. And your company's Kingdom Nutrition Company, and based on a very similar philosophy. So I thought it was a great time to have you on the show, especially with everything that in the industry that's going on with Lasix right now. So I'd like to start with a little bit of talk about Lasix. Well, no, first I want you to tell the story about Storm Petrel and that remarkable race, which I cannot find on YouTube. And I'm reaching out to the Naira Library to get a copy of this race because it's one that people should really see. But why don't you tell us what happened that day with Storm Petrel, who was one of your stakes horses that you trained back in the day?
Very interesting story. At that time, I was using Greg McCarron as my go-to rider. And we ran the filly Storm Petrel. And there was a filly in the race trained by Mr. Weinstein, a gray filly. And she was going head and head with us and lost a rider. And Greg McCarron grabbed the whole of the reins, and that filly carried us all the way to the wire in victory. And when Greg got off the horse, I said, Greg, why did you grab hold of that horse? He said, well, I learned a long time ago from Bernie Bond that if it ever happened in the race, it's very dangerous because that horse might cross over my path. So he said, if you possible, grab hold of the horse and use that momentum to carry you to the wire. And it was funny, but that's what he did.
It takes drafting, like in NASCAR drafting or even bicycle racing, up to a whole nother level, having it's double horsepower.
Absolutely.
Who won the photo? I know obviously you're the winner.
How legal is that move, by the way? Was that frowned upon? Is that the stewards notice that, or?
No, they thought it was genius that he did that. That he.
Who actually got the photo?
Because I'm not gonna lie, if I was beat by that, I'd be pissed.
No, actually, he let go just before the wire, so that other filly naturally she had no weight on her, so she opened up a length or two. Yeah, it was cool though. It was cool. But I got the money. That's the main thing.
There you go.
And it's funny because Greg didn't. He had a good long career in the saddle, but never reached the level that his brother Chris did. But that act of horsemanship probably rivals a lot of what Chris did in the saddle.
Yeah, well, I think Greg was as good a rider as Chris, but Greg was a very low-key guy, extremely humble guy, and he stood for right, and I think that worked against him.
Yeah, he was. I remember him, and he was very, very humble, low-key, always a gentleman, nice guy to be around, and rode for a long time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he rode until he was 50. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
Now, Teeks North, United Nations. Tell us a little about that. Is that your biggest win, the United Nations?
The United Nations and the Gulfstream Park Handicap, we won those two Grade 1 races with Teeks North. But it's a very interesting story because I really wasn't training at the time. I was focused on my nutrition company. And my son, Nicholas, who's one of the premier bloodstock agents in the industry, he had purchased this horse from Larry Bates, and he gave the horse to Richard Dutrow. And about 4 weeks later, the horse came back with severe bruising of the cannon bones, and they sent him to Ruffian Hospital in Belmont, and they said that the horse needed 6 months off and maybe he would come back. So I happened to live right around the corner from Overbrook Farm in New Jersey. And he said, Dad, why don't you play with this horse? He said, see what you could do, see if you could bring him back. So make a long story short, we shipped him to the farm. We kept him in the stall for 2 months, and he was mean because he was in a lot of pain. But anyway, after the 2 months, he started acting really good. So I called up my son. And I said, Nick, I think this horse is ready to go back into training. He said, well, you're on the farm. He said, start playing with him. So we started training him, and the Monmouth meet was getting closer. He said, well, you know what? Take him to Monmouth Park and train the horse. So we started training. I said, wow, this is a real nice horse, Nick. I said, I don't think you know how good he is. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, he's ready for a race, but I think he's really a turf horse. So I said, all right, let's give him one race on the dirt, see how he does. And then we'll go from there. So he did. He ran a good race. He ran fifth. He got beat about 7 lengths. And then I prepared him for a main special weight race. And he lit up the board and paid $62. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you have any money on that race?
I'm not going to comment on that.
That's a big fat yes. All right, good.
That's another conversation we can have.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know, but my life parallels Jonathan's life.
No, that's a good and bad thing in many ways. So.
No, it's a good thing. It's
Yeah. No, it is.
Now, how did you go from trainer, racetracker into a nutrition company founder and ultimately an equine nutritional expert?
Well, I wouldn't classify myself as an expert, but I would classify myself as a person who has a boutique line of nutritional supplements that are extremely beneficial to help any horse with any issue he might have. But that's a good question, because at that time I happened to be split. I had horses at Belmont and horses at the Meadowlands. And I got a call from Bobby Lake. I don't know if you remember Bobby Lake.
I remember Bobby Lake.
And he had a horse that was ruled off in New York called Bambolino.
I remember the horse.
And at the same time that the horse arrived at the Meadowlands, a gentleman came around and he was selling a bucket of stuff. And I felt bad for the old guy. He was an older gentleman, but he claimed that this horse could help prevent horses from bleeding. So I said, all right. So I forked over the 300, took this bucket of stuff. And I happened to have another horse at the time that I bought out of the broken bone sale from Frankie Costa, who was a bad bleeder. So I started feeding it. And when it came time for Bambolino to run, I ran him up the Meadowlands. I'll never forget, he was a dead closer. We had post 1 with Jose Santos going 3/4. So the race is off, and I'm watching the race with my oldest son, Justin. And coming past the 8th pole, my son said, Dad, that's your horse. I said, no. I said, you might have the same colors. No, he says, that's your horse. Anyway, the horse flashed by, won the race, ran one of the fastest last quarters of the meet and did not bleed. Okay. So I don't give any credit to the bucket of stuff. I'm a great trainer. I fixed the horse up.
Oh, of course.
So anyway, the next one we run, do you remember Old Glory Stable?
Absolutely.
Okay. Tony Shimetta, who happened to be a friend of mine from the neighborhood. His son Anthony is the assistant trainer for Todd.
Right.
His game was to claim one for 50, run it for 1/4. Take a big edge. So I put this filly in that I bought for 7,500. I put her in for 12.5 just to see how she would do. And Tony dropped one in from, I think, 35 to 12.5, and she was 3 to 5. And he had, I believe, the 5 post, and we had the 11 post. And we went head and head, neck and neck, nose and nose, 44-1 to the 1/4 pole. And I said, oh my God, my filly's finished. And all of a sudden, his horse stops, my horse draws off and wins by 5. So now I'm scratching myself. I said, is it possible that this bucket of stuff works? So anyway, I started feeding it to all the horses, and even if they didn't win, they were performing better.
Okay.
So a light bulb went on, and I said, I think this guy's got something here, So he begins to tell me that this product was formulated by a nutritional scientist hired by the government to stop the bleeding in chickens. I don't know if you remember, Michael, you're probably too young. You might remember, Jonathan, that in the 80s, early 80s, hundreds of millions of chickens had to be destroyed in this country.
I don't remember, but
because they were hemorrhaging from their chest, and they didn't know why. So they hired this nutritional person, and scientist actually he was, and he discovered that it was the grain that they were eating was giving off something called an aflatoxin, and it was caused by the mold in the corn that they were eating. And he created this product for this gentleman for racehorses. And that was the beginning of the company. It was the product, which I still have, called Hemagon. And my opinion, and many people have different opinions, veterinarians, different horsemen have different opinions why horses bleed, and they're various. And I can name a few just to give you a little background.
I want to know your opinion. Why you think?
Okay, well, I know what the reason is. The reason is that the capillaries in a horse's lungs, okay, are supposed to be permeable, okay? And when the rush of blood, okay, passes through them, they should be strong enough and not bleed. But what happens is they're exposed to all of these contaminants, mainly mold from hay or grain that may be sitting in a loft for 6 months before the trainer ever gets it. And it destroys the integrity of the capillaries. And when the horse is put under pressure, the capillaries can't hold and they leak. So by introducing the two products that I have that are for that purpose, I have about a 90% strike rate that your horse will not bleed with or without Lasix.
So what percentage of horses bleed in general without any type of supplement, without any type of medication?
I would say at any particular time, 100%.
Really?
Yes.
Has that been the case since when you started training in the 70s and 80s, or has it gotten worse in the breed over time?
I would say the percentage is probably the same, but people weren't aware of it at the time. They were different.
Like I was never aware of it back then. One of the things I always wondered about, Justin, is, back in the days when, you and I were at Aqueduct in Belmont on a daily basis, and Lasix was not used or legal in New York at that time, our horses seemed to me, and I'm not a horseman like yourself, I was a better, but it seemed to me that the horses ran more often. A horse that needed Lasix had to go like to the Meadowlands or somewhere and was considered a second stringer almost,
Okay.
And I've always wondered, well, why didn't they have that bleeding problem then where everybody needed Lasix? And like today, it's like, everybody has to have it, and then our horses ran without it.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, Lasix does not prevent horses from bleeding, okay? Lasix lowers the pressure in the lungs, okay? So the force of the pressure of the blood going through the capillaries is less.
Okay.
And to some degree, it's beneficial to help the horse breathe better, but it does not control bleeding, okay? Now, to take you back in the day, okay, people did various things to prevent horses from bleeding, because horses have been bleeding from the beginning of time, okay? The old horsemen used to draw a horse, used to take water away and hay away for 24 hours before the race, which had some impact in controlling the bleeding, but not a total impact, because it caused other issues. It caused dehydration, possibly causing the horse to get the dumps from the lack of the water that the horses were intaking. So those were some of the remedies. Some of the other remedies they used shavings rather than straw, because sometimes straw was dusty and that was a contaminant, and they believed that might be doing some damage to the horse's lungs and capillaries. But like I said, everybody has a different opinion why horses bleed, from horsemen to veterinarians.
Interesting. Yeah, no, and everybody's got a different.
And we should have asked this earlier. What is your opinion of it, Lasix? Should it be allowed in the game, or do you like the phase out that we're doing right now?
I think Lasix is beneficial to the horse because it puts less stress on the horse's lungs. The other side of the coin is that Lasix does dilute a possible drug that may be an illegal drug. Okay. I think there's a balance that has to be weighed, but I think it's not harmful to the horse. It's more harmful to the bettors.
Yeah, because obviously it got a lot of news this weekend, clearly because of Aunt Pearl, right? She was a single on many tickets, and when to be honest, I'm not sure she would have beaten that monster that beat her even with Lasix. But it's bettors. A lot of them feel cheated if a horse doesn't get to run on Lasix, because It's just a variable they don't want to handicap. You know, John and I are very anti-race day medication, no matter what it is. Again, I know I'm not a horseman, and it's interesting to hear your guys' perspective. Because we had a show a few weeks ago, you know, and we were hearing stories of how cavalier some trainers were about getting Lasix, and veterinarians basically giving it out like candy. And it was distressing to hear, for sure.
Now your product, and you have a bunch of different products, but you have one product or maybe more, I don't know, that specifically helps with bleeding, and it's like 90% successful.
Yes, the first product that I discussed with you is Hemagard. That's the original product that I used.
Is that the bucket of stuff?
That's the bucket of stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
the famous bucket of stuff. But the second product I have is called Equinobleed. Okay, and that works like the Chinese gunshot medicine. Okay, are you familiar with that?
Chinese gunshot medicine? No, I've never
Yes.
been
Not here.
shot by a Chinese guy.
It's actually an herbal medicine that could actually, if someone is shot, could stop the bleeding very rapidly.
Interesting.
So what that does is it fortifies the capillaries to hold. And the combination of the two products, like I said, it's a 90% strike rate. The only time we will have a problem is if the horse has a guttural pouch infection or some other type of respiratory infection that is not diagnosed when using the product. But other than that, it creates a healthier capillary and a stronger capillary.
So where's the line to you for what's considered, you know, just a good supplement that gets your horse healthy versus a performance enhancer? Because that's
Okay.
I feel like that'd be close.
No, that's a good question. That's a very good question, because most of the feeds that are fed to some degree have additives in there, different types of vitamins. Okay. But when you look at the size of a horse between 1,000 and 1,200 pounds, okay, you need more than a sprinkle of nutrients to help the horse. Okay.
I imagine.
Now, the intestinal tract, your stomach is like the second brain. Okay. If that's not working properly, the whole body's not going to work properly. So what we developed was a complete supplement, an additive to the feed, which has all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, pre and probiotics, which will destroy the bad bacteria in the horse's system. The horse's system will be cleansed, and the horse can perform to the degree he's supposed to perform. And that's why when you look at some horses, they just don't look well in the post-parade. They look dried out. Their skin does not look good. They're not healthy looking. And those horses, they don't perform well. It's just like human beings.
Oh yeah.
You are what you eat. You know, I was thinking about that as an example today, and just thinking about nutrition in general. And I just had a thought that came to my mind, and it was exactly that, how you know, we really are what we eat, and people don't realize that. And you know, at the end of the day, do you want to be a piece of fried chicken, or do you want to be a beautiful Valencia orange? Because it's really up to you. You know what I mean? And you know, so many of us make those wrong choices and pay the prices for that. And I think people don't realize in their own personal lives how important proper nutrition is, and how eating things that benefit you nutritionally is. And it's the same for animals, you know. So you know, I think you're really onto something, and I think that the racing industry as a whole should really embrace the whole concept of what you're trying to do with Kingdom Nutrition Company, with you know, maybe limiting you know, the use of certain things to these type of supplements. Or maybe I'm off base. I don't know what you think.
Is that the main goal of the company, is to get these horses off drugs and get a much more natural nutrition that gives you the same benefits?
All right, here's the goal of the company, and it's always been the goal of the company. Okay. You cannot make a racehorse run faster than a racehorse can run. Okay. But what you can do is enable the horse to run to his maximum potential through nutrition. That is possible and has been done. I'd like to interject a little story about that bleeder product, the bucket of stuff, and a trainer that most people would know. His name is Wayne Lucas.
Absolutely.
Heard of him.
All right. So I'm going to take you back to, I think it was 1986. Could have been 87. I'm not sure. When Karen McLaughlin was the assistant trainer for Wayne Lucas at Monmouth Park.
Okay.
And every Saturday I would go and pass by his barn, and Karen would pick my brain. He goes, man, he goes, I'd like to use some of these products. He goes, but the boss is the only one who can make a decision. So I said, well, when is he there? Well, he flies in every other week, you know. He said he's coming next Saturday. He said, if you come at 11 o'clock after training, maybe he'll talk to you. I said, all right. So I walk in the barn, and he's pointing to the office where Wayne is. And there's Wayne sitting in a satin jacket with his big cowboy hat in there. And I walk in with my satin jacket and my hat and my clipboard. And he raises his hands. He goes, I ain't buying nothing. All right. So now I got to put my salesman's hat on. I said, well, how about if I give you something for free? Nobody in this life gives you anything for free, he says. Well, now I really have to put on my salesman's hat. So I said, well, I asked a loaded question. I said, do you have any horses out of the 44 horses in this barn that bleed? Whoa, now he gets very defensive. Yeah. He goes, everybody has horses that bleed. So I said, well, do you have any? He said, yeah, I have them. He said, why? You can stop these horses from bleeding? I said, I believe I can. So now he's thinking, he's getting the product for free. He has horses that are bleeding. He must be foolish not to accept my offer, right?
Right.
So he calls Karen McLaughlin into the office, right? Now Karen already knows what he wants because he knows the horses he wants to help, right? So Karen selects 4 horses, right? The first horse you'll know because he gained national prominence after being unable to break his maiden and 13 starts, Slew City Slew.
Okay.
He went on to win, I think, 6 Grade 1 races and never bled after that. The second filly he picked out was a filly by the name of Tricky Score, who was a stake horse who hadn't won in 6 months, and another filly named Tricky Score and Cream Sauce, who also was a filly who had not won in 6 months, and she won 3 stake races by the end of the year. And the one that put him over the top was a filly that he bought, paid a lot of money for. I don't want to mention the numbers because that's not my business, but the first time he ran her, she bled and got beat 57 lengths. The first time we ran her back on the product after a month, she won by 17.
Are you going to tell us who it was?
No.
No. You don't have to tell us what it cost. We just want to know who the horse was.
I believe her name was Shimmering Gal.
Okay.
Anyway, from that point on, for 9 years in a row, he spent $50,000 a year just alone in bleeder medicine. And if you look at those years, those are some of the biggest years he had.
So let me ask you this.
Thank you, Wayne.
Absolutely. How much pushback do you get from the veterinarians? Because I'm assuming the trainers are not putting something they have no idea what it is in their horses without asking.
Okay. So that's another interesting story. So anyway, getting back to the bucket of stuff, after I saw this was really working, I'm driving home one day.
This episode, The Bucket of Stuff?
Can
we call this episode The Bucket of Stuff?
I call it The Bucket of Stuff. No, the name of the product is Hemagon, but I didn't really believe in it when the guy, I just felt bad for the guy, and I gave him the 300, right? So anyway, I'm driving home from the Meadowlands, and sometimes you hear the silent voice of God, and the voice is telling me, go with this, go with this, go with this. But being a hard-headed Italian, I didn't get the message at the time. But finally, I got the message. I said, God wants me to do something with this product, right? So I went home and I told my wife, and she thought I was absolutely crazy. And despite what she said, I sold my horses that I owned myself. I turned it into cash, and I bought the exclusive rights to market this product nationally. So I started walking around for about 6 weeks. I must have been a bad salesman. I didn't sell one bucket, right? And the vets, like Michael suggested, they were knocking me. There's no way a product like this working a powder through the intestinal tract is going to stop bleeding. But after about a month or so, people were calling me and they were ordering and they were ordering and they were ordering. And that was the kickoff. And we kept building around that particular product to build a company which I owned at that time called VitaFlex Nutrition Company, which became one of the largest equine nutrition companies in the United States. And I sold to Farnham Industries in 1997.
Wow.
So like I'm assuming the recipe is proprietary, like you don't know, like you're not telling everybody exactly what's in it. Like,
exactly.
Exactly. Well, here's my question though. Like, how much do you have to disclose to the vet? Because again, if I was a trainer,
right,
I would never give my horse a bucket of stuff. I had no idea what the hell's in it. So like how much do you have to disclose so that they at least understand what it's doing to the horse?
Well, it's labeled. All the nutrients are in there.
Okay. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like
Mhm.
I understand the pushback because it's like you want to make sure you're giving the equine the best thing you can, and it's.
And most trainers will do anything they can to help their horses. They really want to help their horses.
Yeah, I get nervous because I think there are a lot of trainers that'll do anything to win, not necessarily help the horse. So it's like it's a balance that I wish the industry did a better job of, but it's just interesting to hear from how much
it's coming, Michael. It's coming along. People are more focused on nutrition than ever before. They're very open.
It's kind of a question I was going to ask you later. Do you think in terms of nutrition and drug use, are we in a better spot today than we were when you first came in, or do you think it's like drugs are even more prevalent today?
Well, I think we're in a much better position because people are more open to the nutrition end of it. But in any sport, any industry, there's always going to be people that want to bend the rules, and this is life. And I don't think you're ever going to stop it unless there are some severe penalties for people.
Yeah, it's one of those, and it's tough because it's not like cheating in any other sport where, if you cheat in baseball, you're hurting some other people. But, if you cheat in horse racing, it can be animal abuse. And that's why we got to be really careful.
That's true. Very true.
Absolutely.
So let's talk more about so what are other issues that you're trying to solve through nutrition? Are you so obviously bleeding is one of them. What are the through good nutrition? Okay.
Do you have that list in front of you, Jonathan? Do you have that list in front of you?
I do. So it was, you were talking about fatigue, ulcers, things like that.
Okay, let's talk about ulcers. Okay, if you, I'll wait for you to come back, Michael. Okay, if you did endoscopic studies on horses today, thoroughbred horses that are racing, you would see that 95% of them have ulcers. Okay,
really,
which are very, very painful and will stop a horse in a New York minute. Okay. Now there are many legal drugs that are out there that are very, very useful, like GastroGuard or some forms of omeprazole. Okay, but they're only band-aids. They help for a short time, but like any other drugs, there are side effects. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was fortunate enough to discover a product, okay, that is produced by nature, okay, which is a combination of over 300 herbs and natural flowers, okay.
I thought you were about to sell me some cannabis there. That's usually how they start.
No, that might help some degree for some,
probably would.
Some horses, but I can't testify to that. But the product that we have is produced by pristine ponds, okay, no additives from a human hand, okay. And what they do is they detoxify the whole intestinal tract and they heal the ulcers in 90 days. And if you look in the little catalog that I gave Jonathan, there's some before and after pictures of horses that have benefited greatly by this product. So it does two things. It heals the ulcers, detoxifies the whole internal system of the horse, and the horses just blossom and then they're able to perform the way they're supposed to perform.
Gotcha.
So
Interesting that you mentioned ulcers, because Bobby Frankel once told me years ago, and we all know he was great trainer, had a ton of success, but he once told me that, and I think he said the same thing. He says 90%, 95% of race horses have two problems almost automatically that he addresses anytime he gets a horse. One was ulcers, and the others were teeth. Always had bad teeth and infections and gum issues and things like that he would always treat, always get rid of, and would always significantly help his horses.
And he was right ahead of the curve on both of those issues. Yes.
Interesting.
No, it is. What has been your experience with? Again, we had a show a couple weeks ago, with some veterinarians, and John and I were talking about the difference between like race veterinarians that are at the track and veterinarians that are not involved in horse racing, and they have completely different views on what you should be giving horses. And I was going to ask you, like, what was your experience dealing with these veterinarians? Are they open to this style of treatment for horses? Or are they kind of stuck in the old ways of let's give them the drugs and the side effects are what they are?
Well, let me say this. There are several trainers that are holistic, and they believe in the power of nutrition and also use certain drugs that they must use to help certain issues with horses. So there is a place for both. There's a place for the veterinarian and the use of legal drugs, and there's a use for nutrition in certain areas of helping a horse.
Yeah, I did. And I think sports is kind of the same way, right? I mean, there's the big one in like Major League Baseball, for example, is HGH, right? Currently it's illegal. I would actually argue it should be legal to help recover from injuries. I know racing, and obviously HGH is not a great example, but I know racing kind of has similar issues of, should we be giving horses stuff to help recover from injuries? But it's tricky because you never want the horse to run when it shouldn't be. And that's kind of how I feel about Lasix sometimes, is not only can it mask other drugs, it could, and I don't know if it's true, but I feel like it could help them run harder than they should or would want to if they weren't on the drug.
Well, let me give you an example. Right? Have you ever played any serious sports like football or rugby or any basketball contact sports?
I was soccer and tennis. So
Okay.
I don't know if you consider those.
Yes. Yeah.
High intensity sports, but I certainly.
So if you played a game on a Sunday, okay, and you went out there and you knocked heads and you hit the ground, and on Monday morning you're a little sore, okay,
Oh, yeah.
and you need 3 or 4 or 5 days to recover, okay. And if you ever saw any of these football players after a football game on Sunday, okay, by maybe Saturday they're ready to feel a little better and they're back in the game on Sunday.
No, I remember Walter Payton got quoted once. He goes, "My ears would literally ring until about Wednesday." Like, and that was just like not even his body. He's like literally my mind.
Now, right now you take the racehorse, okay. Now you're taking a 1,000 or 1,200 pound animal. You're putting a 110-pound man on him, asking to run in deep dirt at 40 miles an hour around the bank turn, okay. And sometimes all of the weight is on one leg. If you really watch close, some of the videos,
yeah,
the pressure is on one leg. I mean, it's going to happen. Horses are going to get some type of injury, and if not injury, they're going to be sore, body sore, and they need time to recoup. Now, there are natural things you can give them to help them recoup, and there are some drugs that are legal that will help a horse also recover fast.
Do you have products that are strictly recovery type products that help with that?
Yes, I do. I have one product that is a performance product. Okay, one of the things that horses deal with, okay, is what they call the tying up syndrome. Are you familiar with that?
I am, yes.
Okay. And that happens when the lactic acid levels in the horse rise to a level where the muscles get fatigued. Okay. And you could have two horses of equal ability coming down the stretch side by side. One horse is going to go on and the other horse is not going to go on because his muscles are tired and he can't go any further. And if it really becomes serious, they will actually tie up, and it's very painful for a horse after the race or after the workout. So we have a product that we developed which has two forms of carnitine, okay, which carnitine is effective in strengthening the heart and delivering fresh oxygen to the lungs, okay? And another product in there called DMG, which helps a horse reduce the lactic acid to some degree and helps a horse focus. And also another product called lipoic acid, which is a natural anti-inflammatory, and it's also a preventative of some types of disease. It keeps a horse healthy. And the whole chain of these four products enable the horse not to tie up. And they come out of the races refreshed because you didn't stress the animal.
Interesting. And you develop some of these products, like you have, like some of these products, like I know obviously not the bucket of stuff, but some of the products that you have, you actually are involved in the development phase of it.
Yes. What I did is I studied the needs of horses for many years. And with the help of 3 different scientists, nutritional scientists, they helped me to create these innovative products.
Interesting. No, it really is. I'm a big proponent of this kind of natural treatment.
Well, especially anything that could lead us the furthest away from race day medication. If this makes any dent in that, it's a win for me, for sure.
Any interest in bringing your products, or maybe you already do this and I'm just not aware of it, but bringing them over to like the UK, England, Ireland, or any other countries to work with any of the racehorses over there?
I've done some sales to the Middle East in the past, but the cost of shipping is prohibitive. And unless people would order it by the trailer load, it's very difficult. I'll give you an idea. A gentleman called me from England and he had heard about my bleeder product and he wanted to buy the 2 products, which the total cost was $240. The cost to ship it was $450.
Wow.
So he did pay for it, but I mean, how many people could afford to spend that kind of money, on the product,
Right.
So
I thought we were getting another guest on the show for a second there, Mike.
Yeah, my son might join us shortly. He's about to turn 1 in a few days, so yeah, he gets a little rambunctious occasionally. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I imagine I didn't even think about the shipping cost, but yeah, that especially today could be very prohibitive, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, actually, a funny story. One of the clients I had in the Middle East, he a very, very wealthy man, and he raced camels. Okay. And he heard about this product because camels actually do bleed when they run.
Really?
And he ordered.
Oh, and they do some serious distance racing over with camels, right? I mean, it's not like a mile and a quarter. It's like a lot. Like it's
right. And actually, he had tremendous success, and all of the other sultans or kings or whoever owned these very expensive camels, they got the word out, and they were trying.
You know what these camels go for? I'm actually curious.
Oh, they go for big money. Oh yeah, big money.
Like 200, like a racehorse, like $200,000 sort of tap
more, maybe $500,000.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah.
What? $500,000?
Yeah. Well, because it's not.
What are the purses over there? This is crazy to me.
No, it's not for the money. It's the prestige. The prestige. Yeah.
Interesting.
That is wild. $500,000 for a camel.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And
sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but like.
No, that's okay. It's good. It opens it up for other things. Now, you were talking about some of the other products, okay? If you notice in the paddock, you see some horses that are washing out.
Yes.
Okay. Now, that could be for a number of reasons, okay? Sometimes it's just the weather. It's extremely hot, extremely humid.
Right.
But sometimes horses suffer from anxiety. Okay. Whether you believe it or not, I'm going to tell you something that not too many people believe, but I know it's true. Horses have a memory. Okay.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'll explain to you why I know this, right? If you're handicapping a race and you see a horse that says bumped at the start, okay?
Right.
9 out of 10 times you could throw that horse out. You know why? If the trainer never took the horse back to the gate and reschooled him, the only thing that horse remembers is when he came out of the gate, he was hit. So the first thing he does is he hesitates to make sure no one's going to hit him before he runs. Okay.
It's so funny because the first horse I think of is Mendelssohn. He got hammered out of the gate at the Derby. He never won a race again. And he was a fabulous horse.
Yeah, and that all goes back to the trainer not reschooling the horse and giving him a positive experience after a negative experience. So you could put that in your handicapping log.
No,
I agree wholeheartedly. I think I've been around horses a lot in my life, and I would say for sure I'm of the opinion that they have a memory. Absolutely.
Right. But some horses, even though they're not anxious, especially fillies, are nervous. They're nervous animals. They first of all, they don't want to be in that stall 23 hours a day, horses. Okay. They get frustrated. They start grinding their teeth. They start sucking wind. It's all these habits that they create. Okay.
They're literally bred to run. I mean, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not a normal environment for them. Okay. So they become nervous. Okay. And we have products that will settle them. Okay. Just take the edge off it so they can perform the way they're supposed to perform. All natural products, of course.
Got some horsey downers there.
It's very interesting stuff. And obviously you wound up in this business and had to learn a lot about equine health and nutrition and even behavior. You're getting into behavioral things now, really, with some of this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what I believe my edge was. Okay. And of course, being around the animal and caring for the animal and training the animal was definitely a benefit because you can read an animal. Okay. Horses speak, but you have to know their language. I'll give you a for instance. Okay. A true horseman can walk up to a stall and just stand there and examine the horse for 15 to 20 minutes. And he can detect the way a horse is favoring one limb. Okay. Or the way the horse is taking weight off his back end, or the way the stall looks after a night in the stall that the horse has been circling the stall. Many different things you can discover just by being a horseman, okay? And I've had the opportunity, and I was blessed with the opportunity to not only deal with a couple of hundred horses, but because I was able to go to all of the racetracks on the Northeast, I had exposure to thousands of horses, okay? And you learn a lot. And sometimes you learn a lot from people that are doing the wrong thing.
Right. Interesting. It's a fascinating game, our game, and there are so many different angles to it. And, for me, the way I look at it, it's nice to see somebody trying to, do right by the animals and encourage others to do it. I mean, obviously, you have a business, you're selling a product, but you're selling something that you believe in and that you believe is going to help in a natural way, the horses and the animals. And I can get behind that because I'm a big animal advocate and a big animal
absolutely
lover. And, it's my love of animals that causes my biggest conflict with the sport I grew up loving because, I'm sick of saying it. I've said it so many times, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. And when you have people in the game, and like you said earlier, Justin, we're always going to have these people unless we really come up with some very strict, enforcement and penalties. But you're always going to have people, just doing the wrong thing. And you're only as strong as your weakest link, and when you're dealing with animals, there's just, you know, no room for that. I'm a zero tolerance guy when it comes to that, you know. So I applaud what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and you know, hopefully more people embrace you know, these type of products, and you know, the safety involved in using them, and the benefit for the animal, and helping the animals in a natural way as opposed to a drugged way.
Yeah, and you know, Jonathan, you also become part of their team, okay? Because when they get the results, okay, they're open to you counseling them. A lot of times I don't sell people the products, okay?
Now let me ask you this. This is interesting. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Here's another angle, and this might be a challenge for you. I'm a claiming trainer. We know how competitive claiming is, right? I see you one morning in the back stretch, and I say, "Hey, Justin, come here. What is this stuff?" And I buy some of your stuff, and now I start winning. I may not want the guy on the other end of the shed row to know I'm beating him because I'm using your product.
That's a classic response that I get from a lot of trainers.
Right. So what do? I'm like, I don't want nobody to know I'm your customer. Don't tell anybody, you know?
So the answer is this, okay? I tell them, listen, I said, what you're saying is true. You know, you're doing well with the products. You don't want anybody to know. But the opposite part of the story is if you don't use the products and someone else is using the products, you're going to be on the losing end.
Fair point. That's got to be interesting though, when you go around and kind of deal with that, you know.
It's, you know, it is. It's like a second family. It's like a second family. Believe me. Most of the trainers rather consult with me than the vet, because the vet, they just tell the vet basically what they want. The vet gives them what they want, and the vet is off, right? But I'll spend a half hour with somebody just to talk about nutrition and the game, and you know, just try to help them along, you know. And you know, there's some people that are busted out, and you kind of got to fork over some free product, which I do.
Right.
Of course, yeah.
But let me give you an example of how you can help a horse. All right. Do you remember the filly Off the Tracks?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my son purchased that horse for one of his clients for a lot of money. Okay. And he was trained by, I think, Rodrigo Roderick. Very nice man.
Okay.
And he won 3 in a row with the horse. And my son gave the horse to Todd to train. And Todd ran the horse the first time. I think it was the Florida Oaks. And the filly ran third, and she bled very bad. And she lost 100 to 150 pounds within a month after the race. So, and I know Todd very well. I know Todd from when he was the foreman for Lucas, when he was the assistant with Lucas, when Karen was there, and fine person, very fine person. So my son said, Todd, he said, I never will tell you how to train a horse. He said, but my father has some products I think we should put this filly on. And Todd agreed. Okay. So he gave her about 6 weeks off. He ran it back in the Acorn, and she just got beat a half a length. She got checked like at the 8-pole. Velasquez, I think, had to swing her out. Anyway, the next time he ran her in the Mother Goose, she ran the fastest Mother Goose in 50 years and did not bleed.
Wow.
Oh.
So that's how nutrition could help a horse without drugs.
Right. No, it's something to shoot for. It really is.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
But there are other things that you can help a horse with. I have a product that is a pretty amazing product. It's called Healthy Bones. Okay. And I'll tell you a little dramatic story, because maybe sometimes that's a better illustration than telling you what's in the product and what it does.
Sure.
You familiar with Frankie Pennington, the jockey?
I know who he is, yes.
Okay. Well, his wife is Jennifer Pennington, and she had a champion show horse. And the horse was jumping one day, and he sustained a very severe spiral fracture from the knee all the way down to his ankle.
Wow. And
the 2 vets that rushed to the scene said, Jennifer, this horse is in too much distress. You got to put this horse to sleep right now. And the tears were rolling, and she called me. I said, listen, I'm not there. I can't really tell you what the vet can tell you, but I can tell you one thing. If you could keep this horse standing for 2 weeks without foundering, I said, we got a shot to bring this horse back. Well, she did. And lo and behold, the horse not only came back to jump, but also came back to win blue ribbons.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's the power of nutrition, you know. Horses are amazing animals. They
Say
can
that again. Yeah.
they can run with things that you wouldn't believe that they can run with, and not get hurt, because they can handle a bit of pain, just like we can as humans, depending on our tolerance to pain.
Right, and
Of
yeah,
course.
they are big, strong animals. I mean, so it does, make sense. Really.
Yeah.
This is really fascinating stuff, and I think this is the kind of stuff that obviously trainers and owners and people on the backside can appreciate and learn from and maybe embrace. But I think even people on the front side and bettors and handicappers and fans can really learn a lot from a show like this and talking about and exploring these kind of issues, because it's interesting stuff, and it's all at the end of the day about what's best for the animals.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and if you think about it, Jonathan, how many trainers really know a whole lot about nutrition? And the answer is not too many. Some guys are well versed, but most don't.
I agree.
And even veterinarians, I believe they only take a 6-week course in vet school on nutrition. And I don't think
Really?
they follow up on nutrition as much as they follow up on the new variety of drugs that are coming out to help a horse.
I agree
So-
with that. I agree with that. And I
So
think
this is-
that's true
yes.
not just in our industry. I think that's true in medicine across the board. Even
I
with-
agree,
with-
John.
right.
Absolutely.
Most doctors will steer people away from holistic and natural remedies and try and put you on a prescription. It's just how they're taught and what they believe.
Right. So the key is they're never getting to the root of the problem that you have.
Right. 100%.
But nutrition can get to the root of the problem.
Right, and I agree with that, and I think that is really sound science that gets ignored more than it gets paid attention to, and that's unfortunate,
Exactly.
Well,
So
great show, really, really. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for your time. I think Kingdom Nutrition Company is an asset to the sport, and I hope everybody really embraces it. I think it's a good thing.
and if you have any of your clients that want to have a personal consultation with me free of charge, let them call my personal number, my cell phone number, 917-885-1198, and I will help them the best I can.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure people will appreciate that as well. There you have it. He is accessible, willing to talk, help, and maybe even get a free sample out of him of the bucket of stuff. I don't know. I don't want to give you stuff away. But
You want to buy a camel tomorrow? All right, I'm ready.
stuff,
Oh, that's, you guys
a
are funny.
bucket of stuff. I love it. Yeah,
You
Yeah.
guys are
that might
funny.
be the best. That might be the best $300 bet you ever made.
There you go.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's
hey,
right.
Can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thanks for coming on, Justin. Always a pleasure to talk with you and to see you. And I really like what you're doing with Kingdom and with the horses. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, my pleasure. And it's wonderful to see you again after all these years. Okay.
Many years,
And-
many years.
And Michael, to meet you for the first time.
Pleasure to
Okay.
meet you.
You have a great persona.
Thank you. tell my wife that she's just
Wives never listen. Don't worry about
no.
it.
It'll be a secret between us.
That's
All
right.
right.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you so much
Have a
for,
great
for
evening.
coming on.
Have a great weekend, and many winners to you guys.
Absolutely. And we'll send you a link in the show. Make sure you have a copy of it so you could see what you look like on television.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Be
Ciao
well
for
and be blessed. Bye-bye.
You as well. Ciao for now. Nobody does it better.